Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. We're live. Hello, folks. Welcome to the Weekly Spinner Rack. My name is Chris. I am your host. This is a lovely weekly show. Trust me, it's lovely. Where I'm going to review the week's comical books quickly, and then I'll pull out some art tools and draw something while chatting with you and telling you about the most important comic book news stories of the past week and possibly making some jokes about them. I know. Not very sensitive of me, but that is something I do. Tell you what, it's always fun to start off by just grabbing some of the people here and saying, hello. We've got Bat and Easterly Art and Moritaka Ishada. That person right there, that's my sister. Hello, sibling. We've got John and we've got Harvey. This is like Romper Room. I just need my magnifying glass. I see Alexander and Big Gay Dave. Steven Johnson. We've got hello from Mexico City. Oh, wow. Hola. There's another one. All right. Starting to reach some of my neighbors slightly to the south. That's lovely. Hello, Black Phoenix. Hello. Let's see. Beowulf says, no glasses, Chris, in the last opening was very unsettling for some reason. Guess what? I'm Superman. Psych, Clark Kent. Let's see. Tick Goblin's letting us know that Donatello does machines. You know, that's just basic science. That's something you just need to know. It's just like Raphael is crude. Donatello does machines. That's nice. How am I? I'm doing well. I took a little nap just before the show to get my energy level up. Grandpa needs his nap time. That one comic book guy says, oh, hi. It's one of those things. Oh, hi. Anyway, let's see. Jameel Frost says, no way. Good evening. I think that's a lot of greetings, right? Raphael was a painter. No. He was a martial arts master with size. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, here you go. Samuel Rojas says, it's New York Comic-Con week. That's right, New York Comic-Con. I've always gone since the very first one. Love that convention just because of its absurd scale. It's a total blast. I did not go to the one last year. I had my tickets. At the last minute, my wife and I were like, you know what? Things are still not super healthy. We're just going to skip it for 1 year. It was tough, but skip that. Back to it now. Let's see. I took a nap so I could catch up on Kayfabe-tober and Jacktober. All right. Yeah. You know, I first started doing live streams on my other channel, Comic Tropes, when it was sort of in its infancy. And for the first 3 years I ran that, I would do a live stream every day of October to draw something for Inktober. And that stuff's all archived there. First 2 years, while I'm still growing, is a great way to like reach out and sort of build this community and everything. By the third year, doing those live streams actually really hurt the channel. Just to explain real quickly, it's why I do this live show on this channel instead of doing it on Comic Tropes. YouTube is essentially run by an algorithm, an all-powerful algorithm that I must obey. And it will just sort of say like, hey, you know, this channel gets about this many views regularly or something, you know. So if you put up your content regularly and it like, you know, will get a range of views, then YouTube says, good, let me promote it to a few more people. If you get tons of views, then they're like, we're going to show it to everybody. Cool. That's how big channels get even bigger. But if you do some episodes like live streams that just don't get as much traction, you know, they just don't come anywhere close to what I do for like a fully edited episode, all of a sudden YouTube's like, oh, this channel's very inconsistent with its views. We're not going to push that to many people. And so it like really slowed down my channel's growth for a little while when I did that third. And I had to figure it out. I was like, why did my channel, like my growth always has gone up on Comic Tropes, but it was like going up like this. And then it just sort of like slowly went up at a certain point. And I had to like look into it. And that's what it was. It's the silly little algorithm. And that's constantly changing, but that's like sort of one thing. And it sort of makes sense, right? If you're doing 100,000 views in a week for one episode, and then you put one out every day that's getting 1,000 views, YouTube's like, oh, not as many people like this. Anyway, so Inktober, though, it is, or as many people have come up with their own versions, it's just an excuse in October to draw every day. I think that that's an awesome thing. I don't quite have enough time to live stream every day, but I will be going to the Comic-Con. I'll be drawing today. Tell you what, let me I'm looking down here to add this. And I'll move it around like that. Whoa! What the? Whoa! Things are going crazy. All right, sorry, I'm having too much fun. Let's do some comical book reviews here. And I'll try to capture comments and stuff that are important and stuff. I appreciate that stuff. Let's see. It says Space Age, but that's not a space train. Look at that, folks. I don't know how many of you recognize that name. That's Diana Davis over there, and she is credited on pretty much all the IDW G.I. Joe books. She's their continuity whiz. Nice to have you here, Diana. You're right. It says Space Age, and what does it have there? It has just a bunch of the Justice League, right? Well, this is a beautiful book that I highly recommend. This is book 2. This is coming out through, like their, I think, Black Label. And it's a nice, thick cardstock, hardbound book. And it's a story about Superman, of course. It also involves the Justice League. It's very, very focused on who Superman is and what he does and what makes him him. This is told through the lens of Superman aging in essentially real time. The last one was supposedly set in like the late 60s. This is now getting into the 70s. So it's got a little bit of cultural stuff going on. But now what we've also realized is this feeds into the original Crisis on Infinite Earths is going on. And so this is a Superman in not our dimension, another one. And it's got some interesting commentary on societal stuff that's going on here through some of the other characters as well, like a Batman who is committed more to, he thinks he can save more lives as Batman, so he stepped down as the CEO of Wayne Enterprises. And all that ended up doing was Wayne Enterprises ended up being less altruistic and moving a lot of the economy outside of the city into suburbs, which hurt Gotham. And he realizes that he's got to, sort of balance his life. That's an interesting thing that's just told in a few pages. I won't give too much up, but let's just say that because this is set in another sort of world, it's not the main continuity, Superman can really grow and change. So that's very interesting. And it's talking about how, does humanity need to be saved or does it just need to be helped? Because, he could put out a fire, but is that, for instance, solving the problem behind whoever caused the fire? And I'm just making that metaphor up. It's, by the way, artwork by Mike Allred and Laura Allred. Beautiful. Dialogue by Mark Russell. Clever, funny, insightful. Look at this. We've got a good joke here. I got to highlight that. You can tell Mike drew this comic. Superman's cape is all Red. Oh, what's that? That's a pretty big event in somebody's life. Anyway, it's a beautiful story. It really is. And it features some things changing. Oh, look who's here. My friend Tim. Hey, bud. I figure I can listen to you as I drive home in Silver Surfer. Some of you know my job. I've got a part-time job outside of this before I can just do nothing but YouTube. And I sell cars, and I was able to help Tim get a car. He got a silver one, and he came up with the name. He named it. It is Silver Surfer. I really, really like that. Mike and Laura, all red equals Ultimate Art Team. They're great. They're really great. And it was funny, I did an episode about mostly Mike recently, and, he's been in the industry for a minute now, over 30 years. And they're still like really, really strong and still evolving a little bit. Let's see. Ready for Comic-Con? I know I am. I'm excited for it. Am I ready for it? Not quite, to be honest. Let's see. You planning on visiting Japan now that the borders are finally opening up soon? I asked Book Off for that Jaws manga, but the whole chain of stores apparently doesn't have it. Yes, Rebel Leaf. I don't have like actual travel plans yet, but my wife and I definitely want to go back to Japan. And I also have an alert with several Japanese manga stores that if the Jaws manga ever comes through, that's my white whale. That's what I want to find. Glad to hear that Superman Space Age is a good story-wise so far. The art, of course, is great and suits that age's aesthetics so well. Totally agree, Paul. Everything about this just feels right. Oh, hey, look, Shobo Coker. How soon do you need to get hotels? Next year's my first Comic-Con. Shobo, definitely something like 2 or 3 months ahead would be smart, at least, if not sooner. By the way, I will be doing an unboxing video soon, and Shobo's comics are in there. Shobo does some comics with his brother. Basically Afrofuturism, I would probably classify it. Oh, but I like this. Silver Surfer is a pretty rad name. Congratulations. Oh, look at that. I also named my first car Silver Surfer. Very, very nice. And Mike Allred's David Bowie graphic novel was a highlight for me last year. Totally agree, Michael. By the way, I went and saw that documentary about David Bowie that's in theaters right now. It's called Moon Age Daydream. And it is a surreal, interesting experience because unlike most documentaries where there's lots of interviews by people around somebody's or even the subject themselves, there's no new interviews. It's all concert footage, behind the scenes footage of David Bowie living his life in practicing different art things because he was into, mime and painting and sculpture. And it does have interviews that he has already done, and it has that in a linear fashion, but it's surreal. Thank you for the super chat, Comic Pulp. Am I reading Bruce Campbell's Sergeant Rock? Oh, maybe we're just getting ahead of ourselves a little. Thank you for the super chat. Let me keep moving forward. Batman Beyond the White Knight. I didn't love the sequel to Batman White Knight, but I loved Batman White Knight, and I'm really enjoying Batman Beyond the White Knight, even though a lot of this is about the Terry McGinnis Batman Beyond, or he's at least he's the main supporting character, I guess you'd say. And I didn't really watch that show, so I'm not super familiar. But this is all remixed through Sean Gordon Murphy's lens. He writes and illustrates this book. It's set in the near future now. And one of the gimmicks to all of this is that Bruce Wayne has some circuitry in his head, okay? And he can see an AI that can help him with electronics and stuff, but he sees that AI as the Joker's non-insane persona, Jack Napier. So he's always got this sort of nattering guy that's talking about how cool he is. He's a huge Batman fanboy, which is pretty cool. Obviously this is dark, so it doesn't necessarily look as good to you on a camera as it does to me in person. But trust me, this is gorgeous. What I wanted to get to, I want to show one thing. While they're escaping at one point, Where? There. This is so cool. This guy, I want to say his name is Derek Powers, has taken over Wayne Enterprises, and he goes to steal like a car out of like the Wayne Enterprises like research labs, and we've got the animated series Batmobile. I'm trying to show it like somewhere where it'll show up. We've got like the Tumbler from the Nolan movies. We've got the original Burton Batmobile. We've got the sort of muscle car from The Batman. We've got the Justice League one. We've got the 60s TV show one. And in person, like the detail on it is great. Nobody can draw vehicles quite the way Sean Gordon Murphy does. I really like what he does. And I love that at the end of each issue, they show a few pencils from the upcoming issue. So I think Sean Gordon Murphy has great dynamic layouts, like the really action packed. He's good at, using negative space to highlight a character or an important moment. And he's really good at like actual like things, buildings and architecture, which isn't always the most fun stuff to draw for everybody, but really, really fun book. No matter what, incredible artwork, but it's interesting to see some ideas remixed. Yeah, Samuel has an eye for the mechanical. Yep, Powers was a big villain in Batman Beyond, at least in season 1. I thought he was. I sort of know that. I think he was like an evil executive that turns into like a glowing green skeleton or something. And so anyway, the 60s Batmobile only went about 10 miles per hour. I gotta speed up because I've got a few books. I'm gonna try to get through some of these a little faster. But this is interesting. It's always interesting when somebody outside of comics gets involved in comics, and that's a little bit the case here. Most of us know Bruce Campbell as the guy from the Evil Dead movies, or maybe from that show. What was it called? Like, I don't know what it was called. Heat Up or Fire Spy or something like that. I don't know what it was called. I didn't watch it, but he was like some sort of retired spy, right? But everybody knows Bruce Campbell. He's writing this comic. It's a 6-issue series about Sergeant Rock, where Easy Company is going up against Nazi zombies. Hey, okay, thanks. I was kind of close. I was like, it was something to do with fire, burn notice. It's cool. It's cool. Hey, gang, love the new setup. Thanks for being here, Marvin. Means a lot. Briscoe County. That was a good show that Fox should have stayed behind. Jack of all trades. Yup. There's my sister, Briscoe County. We watched that one together for its single season. Bonesaw announcer. Oh, right. Yeah. Wow, that name sucks. The Amazing Spider-Man. Bonesaw is ready. I'm great at impressions. You're welcome. Yeah, Diana, thanks for bringing this up. Bruce Campbell has written before. He's written an autobiography, which is actually tremendously entertaining. He's worked as a producer on TV shows, and he has written some comics before. But yeah, now he's writing this one. And you'd think, well, hey, is it going to call attention to itself, or does he have a co-writer or something like that to help make sure that it feels like a real comic? No, he's just writing this himself. And I'll tell you something, reading through this, I didn't get the sense at all that somebody was struggling at all. It's really funny. It's a great read. Totally agree. And here's the thing. I haven't seen Eduardo Risso's art in too long. A lot of us know Risso because he drew all the issues of 100 Bullets, which is a really cool crime comic. Risso is, I believe, Argentinian. He's definitely from South America. Great artist. Draws people that are sort of like caricaturized in a way, but in a very unique way. He's got his own style. Great at light and dark stuff, like I would say Mike Mignola is. Really good at like playing with shadows. Anyway, it's a pretty straightforward story. Nazis are experimenting with the various chemicals and stuff, and they've created some zombies. Not that they necessarily call them that word. Super strong soldiers that won't stop coming, and Sergeant Rock and Easy Company are sent to take them out. It's a great adventure. Not necessarily as horror focused as you might think with it called Army of the Dead, at least not the first issue. Feels like a little bit of sci-fi stuff mixed into an action story. Yeah, okay, thank you. He's from Rosario, a city in Argentina. I did have that right. Good. He'll be at the con, which is great. He is great. He really is. He's Argentinian. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate that. I someday I'll have to do an episode about Risso because he's definitely a really unique artist. Not everybody is unique, but I think that, when you're looking at Eduardo Risso's art, that it's Eduardo Risso and not somebody else or somebody similar. He's got that style, but it's still clean. Covers here by it looks like that's Gary Frank, and that's cool. Anyway, better than I might have anticipated, because I have to admit, when I saw that Bruce Campbell was writing it, I'm like, is this going to like riff on all sorts of stuff that like Bruce Campbell has done in movies and stuff? No, it doesn't feel like that. It just feels like a good, solid comic book. So yeah, I would probably be up for reading some more comic books by him. This is a critically acclaimed book, The Human Target by Tom King and Greg Smallwood. Issue 7 just came out, but at the same time, Volume 1, Issues 1 through 6 have just been collected in a hardcover. This is a very special comic that I endorse as strongly as anything I'm going to endorse here. Human Target, Christopher Chance. Normal guy in terms of he does not have any superpowers, exists within the DC universe. What does he do? He's really good at makeup and costumes and changing his voice so that he can appear to be somebody else. He will get hired as a type of bodyguard, but really when somebody's like life is in danger, that way they're attacking him and he knows how to deal with the threat and he keeps his client safe. Well, in the first issue, he's pretending to be Lex Luthor. He's been hired by Lex Luthor, and somebody basically gets through. Oh, look at that. Hey, we've got our buddy Jim here, Jim Mahfood. Chris, new vid rules, Nightmare and Sleepy rule. Michael Winslow rules. See you in New York. Yes, you will, sir. I will definitely swing by. Can't wait to see the new stuff you've got. You all know that I like Jim, and hopefully you like Jim. And yeah, so if you're going to New York Comic Con, Jim does have a table. So check that out. And I believe, because I saw a recent tweet by you, Jim, that you've got some of those new, not new, but like newly printed pop-up art books, right? Feel free to plug if you're there. Yeah, maybe a little like Face Off, but he doesn't surgically put somebody's face on, but he pretends to be them, okay? So he's pretending to be Lex Luthor. He gets poisoned. Not only does he get poisoned, he talks to Dr. Midnight, the sort of physician to superheroes, and he finds out he's got 12 days to live. So now he's got a mystery to solve, his own murder. He's got 12 days to investigate, and his clues take him to Justice League International, one of the, like teams that was known for being sort of goofier, right? Because they're always like sort of laughing and stuff. We've got Booster Gold and Blue Beetle, Gnort, we've got Fire and Ice. His evidence like points to somebody in the Justice League International tried to kill Lex Luthor. He ends up having this unexpected romance in his dying days with Ice. And so like she's definitely a suspect. And it's done like a hard-boiled crime noir detective story. He's falling for the femme fatale. This coloring is just so innovative. It is a great mystery set within the DC universe. This guy is dying, and he's got to figure out who his killer is, and everything is pointing to the fact that his killer is a superhero. That's really unique. Let me jump back to this. Jim says, yes, pop-up book and more, table C06 in Artist Alley. Shameless plug. Not shameless because I requested it, so not shameless. I pushed you for it. There we go. I like the original Len Wein Human Target series. Very cool. 12 Days to Live, move to Venus, where the days are 243 Earth days long. Brilliant. Brilliant. Oh, thank you for the super chat. Let's see. Taki616 says, thank you for the years of great content. Oh, thank you so much. Tom King is great at blending genres. Well, what was it like about a couple weeks ago? I picked up Tom King's 12-issue series about Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, and talked about how great that was at blending genres. And now I'm reading Human Target. This thing is great. If you like crime stories, but it's crime stories set within the DC universe. And, because it's superheroes, maybe things will turn around, but it's great. It makes a lot of sense, and mysteries are tricky like that. Rick Ray there saying the Peter Milligan, Cliff Chang Human Target is great fun too. Thanks for the tip. And hello, JLS Comics. Let's see. Will it actually have been Christopher all along, or someone pretending to be him? I'm pretty sure that this is definitely Christopher, because we actually get into his head and learn a little bit about like who he was and such. So all I can say, folks, is I strongly recommend this book. You saw the artwork. I think that Greg Smallwood's one of the best out there. I don't know exactly how they've done it, where it looks sometimes sketchy and some of the line work is like simplified, but it's just great what they're doing here. And let's give a shout out. Who is doing the coloring? I guess it might be Greg Smallwood himself. Maybe that's why this book is taking a while to make. I'm just looking at all the credits here because the colors are just, there's nobody else credited. So I guess this is Greg Smallwood doing the colors as well. Great book. Smallwood's on top of his game. Let's switch to something I'm not going to spend much time on. Smallwood is amazing here. There you go. You should take... Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yep. Okay. I really want to buy Human Target, but should I wait until they make a full collected edition? Well, you could, but you could get half the story now, and it's coming out monthly, so you've got like about 5 more months. You could, but I can't wait to read this as soon as it comes out. I'd heard good things by issue like 2 or 3, and I was a little behind, but I love that I'm caught up. Oh, this is interesting. Thanks, Ignacio. Smallwood does it all and made the process posts on Twitter. Something I'm going to have to check out. That's cool to know. Look, Amazing Spider-Man, I want to like this book. I just don't love the story. And Zeb Wells is the writer. I've liked a lot of what he's done in the past. Just this past week, he wrote the latest episode of She-Hulk, and I found that hilarious. I thought that it was a great episode. So Zeb Wells is a talented guy, but I'm not loving this, so I don't know what else I can say about it. Are you a fan of Matt Fraction at all? Definitely, Larry. Thanks for the super chat. Thank you for the super chat. I almost picked up Satellite Sam recently and was curious if you recommend it or not. Much love from New York City. I haven't read that, so I don't have an opinion on that I can say. Listened as I drove home. See ya. Well, thank you for dropping in. Look at this. Loving that mustache. The big mustache. No one will get to see it in New York. I'll be wearing a mask. You'll see if you go to New York Comic Con, look for me. I'll look like this. Anyway, there's a recommendation to somebody else. They should pick it up because of Howard Chaykin's art alone. Look, what can I say? This is a standalone issue, which is interrupting the narrative flow. This is the stuff that drives me nuts, but they got to do an Avengers, X-Men, Eternals tie-in. We've got an Eternal is judging humanity. So Peter Parker thinks that he sees Gwen Stacy judging him, and he's trying to be a good person. It's not a bad story, but it's just disposable. I didn't love it. Ignore that word. I got the variant of I hate this place. Issue 5 by Kyle Starks, art by Artyom Topilin, and this wraps up the first arc. We've got Gabby and Trudy have they've inherited a house in the woods, and every night there are ghosts, there are monsters. There are possibly aliens. There's definitely a serial killer bank robber that attacks them. And everything just goes crazy in this issue. But like I say, I can't give away too much more because it's the final issue. Anyway, there's a hint at another story arc coming in a few months. I'm in. This is a fun horror comic. It's crazy. And then there's a nice, at the end of every issue of I Hate This Place, there's an essay by my buddy Benito Cereno, who's written some comics. And this one is on the origins of the slasher movie. Very cool. Anyway, if you like horror, especially if you like horror more in the vein of like, Cabin in the Woods and Evil Dead and things like that, where like just bonkers stuff happens, this book's for you. There we go. Nice. I've been loving I Hate This Place. The art is really fun, and I'm invested in the characters. Absolutely. Kyle Starks is knocking it out of the park with that. Hey, Chris, who's got the best mustache in comics? Who does have the best mustache in comics? Probably, I'll say, and you can argue with me, I'll say Doctor Strange. I think Doctor Strange has always had a neatly manicured mustache that makes him look fairly unique. Yeah. Yep. Saw a rude word on the cover. I don't think that the algorithm really cares that much. Oh, Diana interpreted that differently. Maybe that's how the question was meant to be asked. Who has the best mustache in comics? She mentioned Sergio Aragones. And if we're talking real people, I think I got to agree. That bushy thing is like half his face. But I love Sergio. God, Sergio's just a great... maybe they didn't. I guess that wasn't clear. I was thinking characters because I get asked about fictional things so much. But it might have been real. Oh, look at this. Hello. Oh my God. I can pay my mortgage. Thank you for the super chat, Andrew. Greetings from Disney World. Ever read Hot Lunch Special? I don't think so. It's a crime story about gangsters fighting over the truck stop sandwich rackets in Minnesota. Art by Jorge Fornes. Dude, that sounds right up my alley. Hot Lunch Special. Mental note. Click. I'll try to remember that. Thanks for the tip. That like sounds unique. That sounds really cool. Yeah, people talking like J. Jonah Jameson's mustache. Yeah, maybe before the first movies, like when he basically had a Hitler stash. Now he just has a regular mustache. JR drew a great mustache character in his Daredevil run. Yep. Somebody said Dum Dum Duggan. So I think a lot of people were talking about like fictional things like I assumed, but there's another John Dorsey endorsing Sergio. And I have to admit, I'm trying to like think like in terms of comics, who else has a mustache that's even close to what Sergio has? Here, let me pull it up for you. Just some of you might not know. Aragones. I'll pull this up in a minute. I'm just typing something in. We're gonna add a screen here. Yeah, there. Am I showing it? So there's Sergio. Look at that thing. Look at that thing. Those mustache rides must cost more than a nickel. All right, I'm being rude, but there we go. I just wanted to show that. Greg Capullo has a killer stash. Does he? Hold on. Let me open up another window so that I can do this a little better. Now I'm curious. I'm going to look up Greg Capullo's mustache. Am I going to open up Greg Capullo's mustache? This is important stuff. Okay, hold on. All right, so I go to close this, and I add a new screen. This is fun, right? Okay, and then I type in Greg Hello. No. Oh, all right. Yeah, look at that. That's a mustache, all right. There he is. We got this thing sort of very well manicured. That's clearly a mustache. All right. Very nice. Very nice. Stan Lee had a good one too, right? Brian Bolland has a solid one at certain points. Good. R.I.P. Stan Lee with the OG White Lightning stash. Yeah. Yeah. All right. There's not many more left. Here's another one that I strongly recommend. 8 Billion Genies by Charles Soule and Ryan Brown has been fantastic. This is issue 5. Okay, quickly. Premise: everybody on Earth gets a genie one day. One wish. And wishes can sort of override and cancel out other wishes, but the world quickly becomes pretty crazy, with the exception of people that have thought to make safe havens, okay? So let me find an example of that. Okay, so like in this like wasteland, there's like this domed city, and there is some crazy stuff in there, but everybody's working harmoniously because one guy wished that people would believe in him. So when he has an idea and stuff, people will follow him. He becomes sort of a natural leader. There you go. We need a mustache competition. I think I'm ready to compete. So we've got that premise, right? And we've got some main characters that we're following that were originally in this bar, and like the owner made a wish of everything outside the bar won't affect this place. So that was like a smaller but safe area for them to live. Every issue jumps forward. So the first issue was the first, the first 8 seconds, okay? Second issue was the first like 8 minutes. It started 8 minutes. Then the second issue was 8 hours. Third issue was 8 weeks. Fourth issue was 8 months, something like that. Or maybe like it started after the first issue. Anyway, we're jumping forward this is issue 5, and now we're up to the first 8 months. So I'm assuming if it follows this pattern that they've invented, the next issue will actually jump forward to the first 8 years. We'll have 8 decades and 8 centuries. I love the Mike Mignola shirt. I'm going to talk about it in a little bit. Is that what it is? I think minutes, hours, days, weeks, months is what we're up to. Yeah. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, issue 5. Beyond that, it's just fascinating to see. Yeah, what would people wish for if they could have one wish to their heart's content? Like some people are going to be very impulsive there. That's just a fact. Some people aren't too bright. Some people are smart, but are they going to like have waited too long? Now, do you make a wish that's going to impact what's already happened, or still like, make a wish for somebody else? Like there is somebody in this that's giving birth and there are complications, and people are like, do I use my wish to help this other person get through that? Sheesh. John Dorsey with the super chat. I can pay next month's mortgage. As a Jorge Jimenez stan, I will pay to shout out his Batman run yes again, and the Zdarsky-written main title Secret Weapon. Colorist Tomo More. These 3 are a super team of creators. I'm reading that, and I will agree with you. It is a strong team for Batman to have these days. That's really, really nice of you. I just realized what that Hellboy shirt was from. Yeah, we got Hellboy there. Look at that. Sorry, I don't want to I got to pick it up to show you, because if I flexed, it would probably just burst into shreds immediately. Like sometimes that's when you're this swole, you have to really take life carefully, folks. Like when I go through a doorway, I got to walk sideways because, you walk straight on, my huge shoulders will just destroy the door jams. It's hard. So, you don't want to flex too much or your shirt's poof. Anyway, yeah, regarding this, I'm looking forward to 8 years. Cannot wait to see what they do with it, because it's interesting to see people change. What a premise. It's crazy. And of course, we're getting down to less and less genies left. Where are we in the modern thing. Okay, so here's the world now. It's obviously pretty bonkers. We've got a human population down to 50 million and a genie population left of 458,003. So like every time, like both things are going down. Let me wrap up with a couple more quickies. Minor Threats is a recent book by comedian Patton Oswalt, also with comics writer Jordan Bloom as his co-writer, art by Scott Hepburn. And I love Patton. He's written some comics too, just like we were talking about with Bruce Campbell. There's another guy from outside of comics that has used, whatever clout he's gained to work in comics. And he knows comics very well. There is a Comic Tropes Discord server. If you, I've got a post somewhere on Twitter that has a link to it. There is. Yeah, Sean Ali saying Minor Threats, an excellent read. Isn't it? It's interesting. Okay, so as the title might imply, and you can possibly guess here, we're dealing with a look at super villains. Okay, so a world of superheroes. There's some super villains. The main one that we follow is somebody that's gotten out of the supervillain game. Her mother was a supervillain, and she was like the kid's sidekick to her. She now is a bartender that serves supervillains when they're like, trying to decompress and stuff like that. So you've got all sorts of weird characters. You've got like the doctor to supervillains, and we've got like, the big, strong, but dumb guy. We've got, like the older gentleman thief. We've got, the guy that's got a huge ego that he's the smartest in the game, but he's kind of like, B tier at best. Things go crazy when a supervillain Stickman has killed essentially the Robin for Batman's analog, essentially. And now the superhero team that's like the Justice League is cracking down on everybody, trying to find Stickman before anybody else. And they're like making everybody's life hell while doing that. It eventually motivates this lady to think, hey, the only way to sort of protect ourselves and get ahead is she's going to round up the gang of regulars at the bar, and they're going to hunt down Stickman and kill him themselves just to get the superheroes out of their hair. So that's their mission. Some really weird, diverse characters that would have personalities that would not be easily people that would work together, but they do have a common mission here. It's fun. Yeah. Sounds like a cool premise. Exactly. Obviously going to be kind of funny because Patton is writing it. One of the best stand-up comics out there, in my opinion. Certainly best that's alive today. He's like one of the very best. And this is a fun comic with a different type of idea. I think it's worth checking out if you like that premise. House of Slaughter. I'm not as into this as I am into like the main title that it's spun off from, Something is Killing the Children. But this is an interesting look at some other people in this hunters society going after monsters. And really, you're not a fan? I think that Patton's stand-up is some of the absolute best. And I am a comedy snob, so I do understand comics are not always going to appeal. I mean, stand-up comics are not always going to appeal to everybody. Humor is very subjective, but I do think that he's one of the best at crafting a joke and delivery. I just really like it. Wow, interesting. One of the more annoying celebrities to me. I love it. I love him. I've seen him live. One of my favorites. Okay, here's somebody on my side. Thank you, Dominic. Hey, it's fine. I do get that comedy isn't always like it's going to appeal to different people on different levels, but I love Patton. Anyway, jumping back real quick to House of Slaughter, the main hunter that we follow in this is an autistic kid, and he's been sent to investigate a monster because he's not going to really be approaching it with any emotion. There's a secondary monster that's essentially his familiar. All the hunters have like a monster trapped in like a toy of some sort so that they can like commute, like it's trapped. So it has to sort of be their advice on monsters and stuff like that. But we learn that this guy is not actually trapped. He's voluntarily staying by this kid to eat his fear. This kid does have fear related to a deep trauma, and he eats his memories. It's very weird, but it is an interesting psychological thing. I remember Patton more for his Red Letter Media than his other works. Okay, well, so, all right. And I picked up the first 2 issues of Grimm. I've been hearing great things. Obviously, Boom Studios has had a massive hit in horror with Something is Killing the Children and House of Slaughter. But Grimm is also making huge waves. Dude, this is awesome. Writer Stephanie Phillips, artist Flaviano. And what's the premise here? There's a lady who's a reaper. That her job is to guide souls from the place where they died across the river Styx and to this like very bureaucratic afterlife where they'll get like sorted and stuff like that. And she's not the only reaper. She's got some co-workers that she likes working with. Main character, by the way, is Jessica Harrow. Nice name, memorable. She works with this guy that was like from the 80s and like this black gentleman from like the 1800s. Like those are like her 2 best friends. They're also reapers. They all have a scythe. Okay, like it's that's like the source of their power and stuff like that. And in the first issue, the guy that she's just escorted has actually like stolen her scythe. She gets it right back. That's not a big deal. He was trying to go see like, his ex, even though like she's moved on in a relationship and stuff. He's having trouble letting it go. But the cool thing about Jessica is, 1, she doesn't remember how she died. Everybody else remembers how they died. She does not remember. That's a mystery. Second, when she's grabbing this guy who took her scythe, a real life cop sees and touches her. Reapers normally cannot be seen by people that are living or interact with the living. So we've got a mystery that's set up there, and that's the premise. All I'll say, it's cool. It moves. It's building some totally unique mythology, and I like the main character. She's a little moody, maybe arguably sort of goth, but there's a reason, like she's like this because she doesn't know who she is. So it's a self-discovery thing. Seems a bit derivative. Derivative in terms of like, we're seeing things like Reapers and stuff like that. Maybe we've seen that before. I wouldn't say that the main character, Jessica Harrow, is derivative. I think that that's like, a classic trope of self-discovery and a mystery of not knowing yourself. Makes me miss Death Vigil. I guess Scooby and the gang's got another mystery on their hands. There you go. Let's move on to like drawing and talking about the news, because I've got a lot of news to talk about. I'm going to move these comics out of the way. Oh, you know what? Yeah, actually, you know what I'm going to do before that? I'll talk real quick about the shirt that I'm wearing. This is sort of what I'm thinking. Wait, I missed. Appreciate that comment, Tick Goblin. But isn't everything derivative? Everything borrows from other stuff. Basically true. Obviously, you can like really crib from someone and not have something original at all. But yeah, there are definitely, they say that there's only something like 7 stories that you can tell or something, that they can all fit into like that. And, when you tell a story, there are different ways to do it, but there's only so many ways to structure a story. So a lot of things fall into place there. Tell you what, instead of like showing anything down here, I'm going to just temporarily, hey, why do I have this shirt? This was like a bonus with a Kickstarter that I supported. The Kickstarter ran back in March of 2021. So it's been a little over a year, but they were great at keeping us updated, and it's been fulfilled. What was it? It was for a documentary. Look at that lenticular cover, by the way. This is about Mike Mignola, as you could probably guess by looking at it. It's called Drawing Monsters, a documentary about Mike Mignola. And it's good. they got a lot of comic book professionals and Hollywood professionals and stuff that have worked with Mike to talk about, and Mike's family as well, to talk about him and his life. It's an artist. He's an artist, Mike Mignola is, that I really like. His art appeals to me very much. If I ever got a tattoo, the first tattoo I'd likely get would be something by Mike Mignola. I like his style. It's very unique. And this sort of explains what makes him unique and why he went that path. It's interesting is all I can say. So like I say, this was a Kickstarter. By the way, this lenticular cover, how cool is that? So now you've got black and white, you tilt it, now it's in color. That's one of the better lenticular covers I've ever seen. I like that personally. It's a Blu-ray, 2 discs. I've watched the first disc, which is the movie itself, and then they've got a bunch of extras with tons of extra interviews and behind the scenes and commentary. Here are some of the special features. Drawing Hellboy. We've got like some of the other people that draw various Mignola-verse titles, stuff that he oversees. We've got like Jason Sean Alexander drawing Abe Sapien, Duncan Fegredo drawing Grabach, that's a monster. Michael Ivan Oming drawing Roger the Homunculus. We've got a tour of his library. We've got Neil Gaiman talking about stuff. We've got Rebecca Sugar. We've got Adam Savage, an animation that he oversaw that never got released. Dave Stewart coloring stuff. Folklore history by Zach Davison, and a director's commentary. It's interesting, folks. So you can't right now just buy this, okay? This has just come out for the Kickstarter supporters, but it is available to see at various like film festivals, and I'm sure it will be coming to streaming services and become available for everyone else. It's just that obviously the Kickstarter supporters get it first. I'm sure it will not be long until you can get it. I do think it's good. Yeah, that's interesting, John. Love how he's regarded as a legend now, as is deserved. I mean, at this point, he has been in comics for something like 35 years, and it talks about his whole history of getting into it as an inker and how he wasn't good at certain things, and how he sort of found his niche. And I love that, finding your niche. Because Mike Mignola was not easy to just slot into, like, just put him on Superman. That's not the kind of artist he is. And it's interesting seeing how he struggled a lot with his comics career those first several years until he did Cosmic Odyssey, where he was drawing Jack Kirby characters, and just studying Kirby and the dynamics of Kirby really changed how Mignola approaches his art. It's a really interesting story. Yeah, the anecdote about Mignola bribing Del Toro. Yeah, it's really, really good. Yep. Famously doesn't like drawing cars or vehicles. And that's a big part of it, saying like, well, I like drawing and I like drawing comics, but like, what could I do where I don't have to draw those things all the time? I like drawing monsters. I like drawing architecture and like cemeteries and stuff. So he created a monster story where he could explore the things that he likes. And sometimes he'll have to draw those things that he doesn't like, but he can draw the things that he likes. It's very, very interesting. I do have a piece of news about it. Okay, so for the Drawing Monsters documentary, here are the next couple screenings. So maybe one of you guys could see this. It will be screened by the Secret Movie Club at Los Angeles' $1 Million Theater on Saturday, October 15th. Okay, so about 2 weeks, little less. Saturday, October 15th in LA, the $1 Million Theater is going to show it. And then it's also going to be shown a week later, October 22nd, at the Portland, Oregon Film Festival. Okay, so Portland, Oregon, and Los Angeles both get a shot at seeing this right now. No, I might do another episode on Mike Mignola. I've done one on Hellboy specifically, and I definitely want to do one on Mike Mignola. Anyway, I really like his style, and so I thought, let's see, I absolutely adore Mignola's style, especially his inking. Let's see, you hide it pretty good, but I found out you're the new king of England. I guess if everybody knows, heavy is the crown. But what can I say? What can I say? The $1 Million is one of the first movie palaces ever built. I've been by it, but I've never been in it. That would be fun. Oh yeah, look, I'm so jealous of the fact that the cartoonist kayfabe boys get such great interviews. Hey, who knows? Maybe I could interview him sometime, though. I've met him. Heavy is the head. No, heavy is the crown. What do you think? I'm quoting Shakespeare? I'm making up my own phrases. Shakespeare might have said, heavy is the head that wears the crown. I say, heavy is the crown. My weak little pencil neck can barely support it. Heavy is the crown that wears the head. You're going to pick on me too, Gene? You're supposed to be in my corner. You're my sister. You have to have my back, all right? How about a video on Richard Corbin? Hey, never say never. There's a lot of great pros out there that I'd love to talk about. Makes great posters, probably makes great tattoos. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. All right. All right. I'm glad that you guys know your Shakespeare so well. Feel free to drop in and deliver a full soliloquy. To be or not to be? That is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or by opposing to end them. I'm going to stop there. 6 pounds or more. Yep. Heavy is the crown that wears the jewels. Thank you, Chrissy. That's sort of your interview with Kirkman is epic. That was fun. And, I think that one went well because I know Robert. I think that helped. You talked to Larry Hama. You could definitely talk to Mike. Yeah, well, you know what? Like, by the way, interviewing Larry Hama was in terms of people that I've gotten in the comic book world to interview, obviously, I guess you'd have to say that interviewing Stan Lee was probably the biggest get, right? I mean, he's pretty huge. And by the way, that interview is on this channel if you are ever curious. I interviewed him for a little while years ago. But after that, Larry Hama, for me personally, was really, really high because G.I. Joe was one of the first comics that really got me into comics, and I still really like his writing. I've loved a lot of other runs that he's done, like Wolverine and Avengers, Nth Man, Overseeing the Nam. I really like Larry Hama. That said, he's famously a bit prickly. So to do that interview, I wanted to do my research not just in what I wanted to ask him, not just in what I think you guys would want to hear, but what has he already been asked a million times? Because I do not want to ask him like a question where he's going to just sort of roll his eyes and give me like a curt, no, that's the answer. So it meant a lot to me that I got to do it. I was happy with how it went, and I felt like I had to properly prepare for that one. It was nice. And also, he didn't want to do a lot of emailing to figure out a schedule. Did phone calls. That's a little intimidating to call up a stranger and just be like, yeah, I'd like to, interview you. When are you available? It was tricky. All right. Let's talk about some comic book news and draw a little something. And I'm just going to show this real quick. I'm going to do an unboxing video on this show pretty soon. And people send in their self-published comics or things that they think that I should review. And so if you want to do something like that, Comic Tropes, P.O. Box 5834, Kent, Washington 98064. Cannot wait to show you guys some of that stuff. I couldn't decide what to draw, and at the last minute, I sort of sketched out this Deadpool. I was like, I haven't really drawn Deadpool much, but Deadpool's in the news. Oh, look at this. We've got a Brainiac here. But soft, what light through yon window breaks? 'Tis the east, and Juliet is the sun. There, that's better. Yeah, that's good. That's a good one. That's a good one. Larry, what's your favorite sandwich? What he would have said. First piece of news I want to talk about is something that will be relevant to some of us and less relevant to others, but I think it'll be interesting to all of us. And that is CGC. They're pretty much the most famous grading company, right? They grade comics, What is this? 9.2? 3.8? They'll figure that out. And hey, that's a valid part of collecting. Some people really like to slab their comics and, just sort of have them protected and have the grade noted. And that's cool. That's a valid way to collect and be into the hobby. It's not really what I'm into, the slabbing stuff, but it's a big part, obviously, of comics. So CGC has announced that they're going to make a change. And what would that be? Well, a lot of you may know this, but not everybody. As the 80s began, going in through the 90s, there were usually two versions of most comics. There was the newsstand edition, which would have a UPC code on it, and there was the direct market version, direct market going to comic book stores. And comic book stores really, really took off. And, let's see, they took off. And so, like, there was more direct editions than newsstand editions for comics out there. So some fans of comics have made their hunt very specific. They don't just want a certain back issue. They want the newsstand edition because there's less of them out there. Now, until relatively recently, there's never really been a huge distinction between newsstand and direct market because, the only physical difference is either a UPC code or, a drawing of like Spider-Man's head. That the interior is the same. The exact numbers that were printed for each aren't really known. So, you get the comic, cool, and you get it graded. Well, here we've got some people reviewing themselves. I'm an 8.5. I'm a 0.5 restored. Solid 3.2 here. CGC has said that they will, moving forward, now note whether the comic is newsstand or direct edition on that bar that they have at the top of the slab. So what does this effectively mean? Well, you could say that this is them catering to the marketplace, that like people have been looking for this and they want to know. So they're giving people what they want. That's one argument. Another more mercenary look at things might say that they're looking to sort of double dip and get their customers to essentially shell out to have their comic graded again if it's important to them to note which version it is, because it hasn't before that. I'll leave it to you as to like exactly where you fall on is CGC giving customers what they want, or are they trying to sort of get some more money out of certain customers? I don't know. It's interesting to see that this has become so important to certain readers that they really want to note that difference, because it's, all things considered, like pretty minor. And, I doubt it's going to be like, 70% were direct market and 30% were, newsstand for most things. I think that like it'll be more like, at most 60-40 or something. I can barely care about grading as is. Okay, that's fair. It seems like a bit of both. It could be. It could 100% be. They are a company. I don't fault them for potentially getting more business. But yeah, here's the real question. Who are reprints and who are first prints? Who of you out there? A somewhat arbitrary grading company who wants more. I don't know that it's necessarily that arbitrary. I think that we have had a system in comics for a pretty long while now of what constitutes what grade. But I do understand what you mean in that, like, is that always applied consistently? Well, that's always been, a point of contention within a certain range of grades. And for things like that. Let's see. I feel like CGC might be a scam. I don't know. Graded comics sealed in a plastic tube forever. I don't get it. I don't for most comics. Like if you had a copy of Action Comics #1, right? First appearance of Superman, 1938. All right, I can understand sealing it in a plastic slab to sort of protect it and note what the condition is, and you get some sort of a reprint if you actually want to read that. Nobody's like busting out their 1938 Action Comics #1 like every couple weeks going like, oh yeah, that is good. Like we're not doing that. But you know, if I got the latest variant edition of She-Hulk #1, does that make sense to slab that? You know, like that's a big bet that's going to be worth something. So I am not super into it, but it clearly gives some people a lot of pleasure to sort of hunt for that thing and then like say, I got it. You know, that's what I want to put on my wall. I own a single graded comic. I did not send it out to be graded. I bought it as such for two reasons. One, it's an early issue of Ninja Turtles. It was something like #5, first print, and I like Ninja Turtles a lot. Second, I got it because the pandemic had just started. There were no new comics coming in, and I wanted to support my local comic shop. It was going for, you know, a decent amount of money, and I was like, look, this is a book I would enjoy having. I might take it out of the slab at some point. I really might. But no matter what, it's going to support this store and maybe help them weather the pandemic a little bit. So that's why I have one. That's just me. Anyway, I take out my Punisher War journal and read it every now and then. Good. Comics are meant to be read, you know? They were created to be sort of disposable, and I can understand wanting to keep them to refer to them, but yeah. Let's see. I have one CGC comic as an art display. Yeah, that's another valid reason. For Bill Sienkiewicz cover art, New Mutants 26. I can understand that too. Is it worth what we're paying for that? Well, that's up to the individual. That's up to the individual. And for some people, it clearly is. More power to them. If that's what gives you pleasure and that's what keeps you invested in comics, I support that 100%. Free the turtles. Do it. Pizza time. I've already read the issues, but I might at some point. I don't know. Yeah. Growing up in Japan, idea of slabbing is so strange to me. Exactly. I mean, talk about a country that loves their comics, manga, but you know, still makes it like disposable. Every week you go to the newsstand, they've got an anthology. It's the equivalent of about, you know, close to $5, we'll say, to get something like Shonen Jump. It's printed on newsprint, essentially. It's very disposable. You can take care of them. There's plenty of otaku that will put that stuff on their shelf, and that's cool, but it's designed to be disposable there. It's designed to be read by people that are like commuting and stuff like that. And then if you really love the story, you pick up the collected edition of that specific story. Chris and Jim should film them cracking open graded comics at New York Comic Con. Yeah, Jim, bring your screwdriver to New York Comic Con. I'll bring a hammer and a chisel, and we're just going to run around the convention, jumping behind dealers' tables and freeing the comics. And we're just going, hey, it's what fans want. We'll be escorted so fast. Hey, look who's here. Codename Newtube02. Hello. Sorry I'm late. Hey, always happy to have you drop by anytime. Yan. Imagine piles and piles of Shonen Jump in a recycling pile. Yeah, probably are. By the way, Codename Newtube02 is the name of a YouTube channel here. I'm trying to sort of like this. Like, how do I do this? There. Okay. Perspective. Whoop. Shabir has a channel where he talks about G.I. Joe comics primarily, but I know that this is relevant. That's why I brought up his comment. Shabir does enjoy getting his comics graded, and he uses a wide variety of grading companies. So while it's not something I'm into, I know that there are other fans that are into that. Shabir, would you pay to regrade your comics to note whether it's newsstand or direct market to regrade them? Would you consider doing that? Because that's what the news article was about. That would be amazing. We would be the most hated guys at the con, or heroes maybe. I don't think we'd be the most hated, for what it's worth. We'd get in trouble and we'd get kicked out. I don't think we'd be the most hated. I think that there's other people that have that title. Thousands of years from now, archaeologists will have She-Hulk #1 slabbed to look back at us with. That's the funniest part, Diana, is that like some of those slabbed comics are going to like outlive everything else. So we're going to get to a point where, like 200 years from now, they're like, wow, yeah, this society really valued their copy of X-Force #7. It must have been very, very relevant to them. They took great pains to protect this sacred text. This must have been their religion. A little bit religion. All right. Good night, Axel. Thanks for dropping in. There is a paper supplier in Japan that sells a similar kind of paper used in Shonen Jump. Learned this on my hunt for manga paper. Very cool. That's kind of what comics we like here. America, newsprint. Yeah. Okay. Let me keep drawing and I'll get on to the next piece of news. You're like, more news. More news. Oh, that's an interesting question. Tick Goblin asks Jim Mahfood have you ever seen or signed any of your comics slabbed? I bet he has. Are the slabs hermetically sealed? Yeah, so that they won't rot. Dead Game must have been a religious text. There's 30 versions of #1, all in plastic. Yes, this G.I. Joe Dead Game. People really appreciated this. Rob Liefeld. Next piece of news is not about Deadpool yet. One of the comics I really like is Grendel. Made an episode about it. I think it's a really interesting book and a look at sort of anger and violence as something that's sort of contagious, societally contagious. Well, they were finally doing a live action movie for it. Netflix had picked it up to develop. This week it was announced Netflix has pulled the plug, but they've pulled the plug after they filmed pretty much the entire season. Let me just jump back real quick to this comment because I did ask Shabir about this. I left CGC and used PGC and EGS. They will have a newsstand on labels. I think old CGC grading prior to 2020 did not differentiate. No, they didn't until recently. So they had the cast. They filmed basically the entire season. There was some post-production work to still do, but now they've pulled the plug. Well, that does upset me because I want to see an adaptation of Grendel. I want more eyes on the comic, and that would definitely help. That's just a fact. However, just because Netflix pulled the plug does not necessarily mean that it's over. The production company that's making it can now shop that around to other channels and streaming services. So, especially where the show is basically already complete, like the money has been invested, we've got a show, I do think that there's an excellent chance somebody else will pick up Grendel. Basically, Netflix just had first right of refusal for anything adapted by Dark Horse Comics. So they were going to do it, but now they're not. The star of it, or the guy at least that's playing Hunter Rose, is an actor named Abu Baker Ali. And he said that he's got hope that it can be picked up, but he's disappointed because, and this is interesting, he goes, he's a Muslim actor, right? Muslims account for about 25% of the world. And yet on TV, there's only about 1% of the speaking characters are represented by Muslims. So it's not the right balance. And he was like, proud to have a fairly prominent role and disappointed that Netflix pulled the plug there. But like I say, I think that there is a good chance that it could be picked up by somebody else. I really do. Because they've already spent the money. We'll see. This is a fair point. The Beowulf says Netflix would have canceled it after a single season anyway. Boy, you're not wrong about that. And the way that like Netflix and some of the other streaming services look at this is they develop a show because it's got a fan base and that will bring in subscribers. But after they give that season, maybe 2 to 3 seasons, they don't feel obligated to necessarily finish it, even if it's getting decent ratings, because they've already got the subscriber. And there's a good chance the subscriber may not leave. Let's see. Jim was asking whether he signed his own books if they're slabbed. Yes, I didn't have a problem doing it. Most collectors will happily pay the artist to sign, and they bring a CGC rep with them to witness. I get it if people want a collectible copy. Absolutely. Anyway, somebody else is pointing out key point, Jupiter's Legacy. That one looked cheap to me, by the way. That adaptation did not seem like it had the full Netflix budget that some things get. And Netflix will stick with some things that basically get lots and lots of press because, like a show like Ozark, which actually didn't last that many seasons. But, I'm not seeing something that's spammed here because I'm looking at it through I'm not looking at this through YouTube. I'm looking at this through a streaming platform that lets me stream. So people are saying capital B stop. I don't see something that's spammed. Okay, that is a problem with this. I'll have to install some moderators that can deal with that. I don't think I agree with this comment necessarily. People can't look at TV needing a proportional race representation. It's not good to just make stories about Muslim people with nothing to do with their lives' experiences. I don't think that that's how people are looking at it. They're not saying like, okay, society has, 17% black people and 50% Muslim, and we need to make sure that our show gets that. What they're saying is you have to, if there's 25% of the world that's Muslim and it's only 1% of them that are represented with speaking roles, that's not even close. Like, obviously there are these types of people in the world and they're not seeing themselves represented at all. I don't think they're trying to match the exact percentages, but it would be like, and that's just the real world. And if you can't mine drama from people with different backgrounds, that's not good storytelling. People having different backgrounds are going to have different viewpoints, and that leads to conflict. That's a good thing. Anyway, what do I think about Iron Man? It's good. It's good. Anyway, I think that's all I've got to say about this Netflix thing with Grendel. I personally do hope that it finds a way to see itself to completion because I like Grendel. And I'd like other people to know about Grendel. I hope that makes sense. Let's see. Moving on. We've got more news. Let's talk about the big news, okay? Why am I drawing this character? Because you know what? Hold on. I need to redo something. Darn it. I didn't. Okay, so give me a sec here. But what I want to talk about is the fact that there will be a Deadpool 3. It's already confirmed that this will be a Disney-produced movie, okay? And Does that mean that it's set in the MCU formally? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. But I think that there's a good chance it could have a little to do with the multiverse, at least as a joke. And I think that this is kind of cool news. This week, actor Ryan Reynolds, who plays Deadpool, produces those movies and everything, made a series of videos that he released with his friend, actor Hugh Jackman, also known as Huge Assman. No, he's not known as that. We all know him as Wolverine. Great casting, by the way. We really lucked out with that since he was not the first choice, but I think he was a great Wolverine. And they confirmed that Wolverine will be in Deadpool 3. And that made it to all of the various official trade publications. They weren't just joking. It's real. Deadpool 3 is being made. It will have Wolverine in it. Now, how will they do that? Well, they didn't reveal that. And we wouldn't necessarily want that. Yeah, I'm so sick of the multiverse trope. It might not. I'm just guessing. Who knows? But yeah, I think that they'll have Wolverine in there. They say that it's going to be a road movie in some of the trade publications that I read. And hey, it makes sense on a couple of levels. First, these two guys are legit friends. They hang out. They've wanted to make a movie together. Obviously Hugh Jackman felt like he sort of did everything he needed to do with the character with Logan. Logan was a really good movie, I think, and ended Wolverine on a pretty final note, like there wasn't much more that needs to be said. But here's the thing. All of the main actors in the X-Men movies had contracts with Fox, which weren't forever, but like I think that they were like still for something like 5 or 6 or up to 10 years out from when Disney bought them, that those actors had the first opportunity to play that character. And if Fox did not use them, if they hired, say, like a new actor to play Wolverine, they still had to pay the original actor their going rate for passing them. So some of those people had those contracts in place. So this is also why Marvel and Disney have not necessarily made X-Men movies yet, because if they made it right now, they'd basically either have to use, say, Halle Berry and James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender and people like that, or they'd have to pay them and whoever else they wanted to use. Not very cost efficient. Better to wait for those contracts to end. But that's also why, for instance, why did we see Patrick Stewart back as Professor X in Doctor Strange 2? Spoiler, it's because he was still under contract, so they could still use him without like having to pay somebody else. Okay? This is why they could still use Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman, because they're still under those existing contracts. Like if they wanted to introduce a new Wolverine in, say, like, the next Black Panther or Spider-Man movie or next Avengers movie, they'd have to also pay Hugh Jackman. That's not a good financial option. Better to wait for those contracts to run out and start their own new mutant universe. Better to just wait. So anyway, yeah, they could afford that financial loss, no question, Moritaka. That doesn't make it good business, especially when they don't need to put the X-Men in yet. Like, the MCU is still bringing in bonkers money. Even if people say, like, the last several movies haven't necessarily been great, people are still enjoying them enough that they're going out and seeing them in droves. So, as long as you can be putting out, Captain Marvel and Black Panther and Doctor Strange and Thor and Avengers and Shang-Chi, you don't need to introduce, on top of all of that, a shit ton of X-Men. You don't need to. But if it's fun for like a onesie or a twosie movie, that's why they're doing it. So Is it like the best contract that Fox could have done? No. But no one accused Fox of handling the X-Men perfectly. They did. It was hit and miss, wasn't it? It was hit and miss. Some of the movies were really good. Some of them were average. Some of them stunk. Yeah, new Black Panther trailer came out today. Diana says that it made her cry. I thought it looked. I thought it got me a little more interested than I had been. I was a little. I'm still a little like reticent to like the idea of making it without T'Challa. Okay, I'm a little reticent, but I do think that Ryan Coogler is one of the better directors that Marvel has on the payroll. I think all of his movies have been very, very good, and I'm definitely curious to see what he creates. I do have a lot of faith in him. I don't think he's ever made a bad or even an average movie. And I think that he's raised the bar on some that we would have expected to potentially be average. Creed or Black Panther, I don't think people expected those to necessarily be as good as they are. They're very good. But so I do have faith in Ryan Coogler to do something clever with it. We'll see. Is it going to be a tearjerker? I don't know, but I did hear that it's a big movie. It's the second longest movie ever. 2 hours, 40 minutes. 2 hours, 40 minutes. Is it true Ryan will do the next Avengers? That's just a rumor. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. Hoping they make a short, comic accurate Wolverine. I bet that they will. That would be different. And it seems like whenever they've like rebooted something in the MCU, they at least want to do it differently. I've got more Marvel news. Let me just roll right into that. Here's another one that surprised me, but cool. Armor Wars. We hadn't heard too many updates on that. It was going to be a Disney Plus show using Don Cheadle's James Rhodes character instead of Tony Stark, since Tony's dead. Spoiler. But I think that makes sense because actually, like, Armor Wars, by the way, is a really cool comic. It does deal with some of the fallout of Tony Stark's alcoholism, but the story itself was also very plot based. It was a cool big idea. All sorts of people had been using Tony Stark's technology, and he just went around the world reclaiming it, making sure that like nobody had access to his technology but him, because he could be the only one that was ultimately properly responsible about it. Not SHIELD, not the Russian government, not anybody, so he just like ran around reclaiming his technology. And I think that you could slot in War Machine and basically still tell a cool version of that story. It was going to be a Disney Plus show. They've announced that they've decided to actually switch that up, and they're going to make it into a movie. Chris is frozen on my end. I think it's you. Yeah. Okay. Not frozen for me. Okay. Sorry. You might want to just reboot if you, yeah. So anyway, yeah, we're going to get a movie version of that. And, I like Armor Wars a lot. It's one of the better Iron Man stories. Armor Wars is a cool story that I could see working very well as a movie. But while I think Don Cheadle is actually a very good actor, he's also like getting kind of up there in age, right? I mean, I don't know that he necessarily is showing his age, but he's been there since like Iron Man 2. What was that? Like 2008 or 9? Maybe 2009? That's a long time. Anyway, that's probably that's small. That's just like going like, can he still handle the rigors of being a superhero? But I guess so. I would love to see the Marvel movies make a little more emphasis on doing a few more real stunts than everything being sort of digital. I would like to see some of that. they did a pretty good job with Shang-Chi, in my opinion. I think that Shang-Chi had a pretty good mix of real action and stunts. A little digital stuff, but I expect that in a superhero world. But I think that Shang-Chi did a good job with that. That's a good point. Okay, so Capital B kept asking about Iron Man. Now I'm talking about Iron Man things. Diana points out now he's gone. Yeah. I put him in a small timeout. Let's see. Is that Deadpool drawing a Neil Adams homage? Oh, wasn't intentional, but looking at the pose, I guess I can see how that is a little reminiscent of one of his famous Batman poses. That was completely unintentional. It is not going to be an exact match for that. Oh, I'm positive she'll be in it. Yeah, TJ Rip says, Riri Williams would be a good addition to Armor Wars. How could they not have her in there? Yo, super sticker from Riv Wilson. Thank you. Appreciate that. I really do. That's really kind of you. You need Fin Fang Foom in the MCU? I think that Fin Fang Foom was basically replaced with the Great Protector in Shang-Chi. I think that's sort of that. Anyway. Yeah, it is. It is very reminiscent of that pose. Completely unintentional, but I guess there's also only so many dynamic poses you can do. But you're right. It is super reminiscent of that. That's funny. Oh, yeah. And the Archmage Frey says, I just want Justin Hammer back. Justin Hammer would be a perfect secondary antagonist to have in Armor Wars. They should really bring him back. I thought that was intentional. It was definitely not. I totally see it. Now that you guys say it, I was not looking at Neil Adams, is all I can say. Didn't Simu Liu say the name Fin Fang Foom was racist? I didn't hear him say that. Maybe it would be considered like the name. I think that they could use the character in certain ways. But yeah. Look, I'm not going to lie. I did enjoy the Master of Kung Fu comics, but they were racist. They were. I didn't really know it as much when I was a kid and stuff, but they colored him differently. And they have like his friends using slang that's very it's not no words that we would use today. I'll leave it at that. Like they would never use those words today. And that's like his supposed like friends and allies. Like they would call him some pretty bad things. It was awful. Why would he say that? Fin Fang Foom has nothing to do with Shang-Chi? Well, not entirely true, though, because Fin Fang Foom does have ties to the Mandarin. The Mandarin's rings were stolen from Fin Fang Foom's spaceship. They're McLuhan. They're alien in nature. And obviously they combined the Mandarin with the comic book version of Shang-Chi's father. So they combined those, and they did have the Great Protector, which is a huge dragon. I think that was sort of the Marvel's version of Fin Fang Foom. They made it a little more mystical and changed some things up. Whereas in the comics, Fin Fang Foom is a giant green dragon that wears purple underpants and is actually from space. Yep, it's part of its time. I do understand that. And like I say, it is still enjoyable stories. I think that they were doing better with representation, but the actual language that they used and certainly the coloring wasn't great. Anyway. Hey, that looks fun. Look at this. Happy to announce I got my Jeep done with a Swamp Thing themed vinyl wrap on the hood and doors. That does sound cool. Let's see. I know this is late. Pause stream, 20 minutes behind, but the idea of regrading a comic to have it state that it is newsstand or direct is idiotic. The slab is clear and you can see which one is which. You said it. This water stuff is really going to catch on. I know that's yellow, but I don't know about you guys, but I love drinking pee. No. It's water, and I just like those Mio flavorers because all I drink is water pretty much these days, and that can get a little boring sometimes. So I use those meal flavors. That one's lemonade. I think that they're great. There's more Marvel news. This one was in like the headline, so let's address this. Yeah, this is the last MCU news that I have tonight. But Blade was just about to get filming. Blade the Vampire Hunter. And yeah, they've got Mahershala Ali starring. They've also added actors like who? I'm trying to like remember. I'm so bad at names. It doesn't matter. They had a director who's been developing this. That director's name is Bassam Tariq. By all accounts, a talented gentleman. But here we are, like basically like something like a month before it's due to start filming, and he stepped down. Does this mean that the movie will be delayed? I don't know. It seems very last minute, but it also does seem like it was amicable for what it's worth. Does this mean the movie's in trouble? Well, I do have some news and rumors for that. So first of all, Bassam stepped down. Marvel issued a statement saying that it was because, they delayed Blade a couple times, and the schedule shifts finally interfered with his availability. So he wasn't able to direct it. He is staying on as an executive producer. He also released a statement saying that he had a great time working with Marvel. He's really proud of the cast that they assembled and the story that he oversaw them putting together. So at least on paper, nobody's like trashing the other. It doesn't necessarily seem weird, but that's an interesting choice. Antoine Fuqua should direct Blade. That's a really interesting choice. Fuqua has done some good action, so that's not bad at all. I think that, they've been doing some script rewrites, and they may have decided that they need to do another one that delayed it a little bit more, and that just made the original director not become available. Here's why I say that. There's a Hollywood insider named Jeff Snyder. On Twitter, he said this. I'm going to read his tweet. He said, I'm told that the current Blade script is roughly 90 pages. That's relatively short. And features exactly 2 lackluster action sequences. Mahershala said to be very frustrated with the process. Feige said to be spread too thin. But hey, that's just what sources are telling me. Don't shoot the messenger. So we have to take that with a grain of salt. Could be true. Could not be true. It's a rumor that we're hearing like third hand at this point. I don't know. That's interesting. The problem is Mahershala Ali went to Feige and said, I want to play Blade, without Feige having a place for Blade in the MCU, and now it's a film in search of a story. Maybe it shouldn't be that hard to do Blade. Some good movies and some good comics. So it shouldn't be that hard to slot Blade in my opinion. It shouldn't be. Maybe it's becoming hard, but we'll see. Look, I want it to work. Will it work? I don't know. I think that Blade is a pretty interesting character. I think that Mahershala Ali is a fantastic actor. Marvel is definitely lucky to have him, because even if the script is lackluster, having somebody like Mahershala Ali will raise the quality. It just will. It will be better because he's in it. So hopefully they can make something decent with him and get this in the works. Hey, you know what? Less than a week, we get to see some more of like the sort of monster side of the Marvel Universe. I'm personally pretty excited for Werewolf by Night. I think that looks cool. That's gonna start getting us down the road of like monsters. We'll see. We'll see if they're any good or not. I want to be hopeful. But who knows? Maybe it'll fall apart. Obviously, the MCU can't last forever. I hope it does all right, because I enjoy those movies, but you never know. Yeah, I totally agree with you here. Ollie was the best part of the Luke Cage show. He was incredible. Cottonmouth was great. He was great in True Detective. He was great in Moonlight. I named one of my koi fish after that because I just like that name so much. That was a good movie. I'm very excited for Werewolf by Night. Always hoping Marvel really branches out a little more. And they keep doing that. Yes, I do know this. Did you know that in the ending for the original Blade film, Morbius appears in the last few minutes? It's just a guy on a rooftop, by the way, with like a mask, like a collar pulled up past his nose and goggles, and that's Morbius. He's way in the distance. We need a Man-Thing Howard the Duck team-up film now. That's crazy to think that we will shortly have both Man-Thing and Howard the Duck canonically in the MCU. Crazy. What else do I have for news? Here's a fun one that I've got to talk about. Webtoon. I mean, I got to keep up to date on Webtoon because of that's where people are reading their comics these days. A lot of people is all I mean. And they had a cool contest this year. It was called the Call to Action contest. So for 2022, they were going to award a bunch of prizes to people that pitched new comic ideas to them. And the winner was announced. Let me read this to you. All right. So first of all, the winner for the 2022 Call to Action contest, listen to all these things that they got. $50,000, yes please. A spot in a Webtoon original, that's just like sort of a premiere slot. A 2-year license to Clip Studio Paint EX. Excellent art program for drawing. And their series might be turned into an animated short. Well, I think it definitely will be, actually. The winner is Lucien Galachane? Galacane? Gaiacane. I don't know. Galacane. Lucien Galacane. How about that reading? I'll go with that one. How would I know? Anyway, came up with the action fantasy comic Scale Hunters. Scale Hunters is a series that follows Thomas and Moat. They have to cross a deadly forest to get to a rumored lighthouse that supposedly has all these different rare scales from fantastical creatures that can grant humans various abilities. The most rare being the scales from a fairy's wings can supposedly grant you one wish. We'll see. Is Tomb of Dracula going to be in Werewolf by Night? So Blade rewrite to include them, not just Black Knight, makes sense. I didn't follow all of that, Shabir, but Werewolf by Night is not going to have like Dracula and Blade and stuff, to my knowledge. I don't think it has Moon Knight or any of that. I think it's his own thing, but it does have some other monsters and monster stuff from the MCU. They've got Ulysses and Elsa Bloodstone. Those are famous monster hunters. They've got Man-Thing for sure. So anyway. I watched some of this. Did I ever watch the Man-Thing movie from 2005? I watched a little. It's terrible. Interestingly, it does star an actress who played Patsy Walker in the Jessica Jones show. So she's done 2 Marvel roles. Anyway. But how about that, folks? Webtoon, can you imagine $50,000 prize as just a starting point? That's pretty cool. You know, like, let's go. Wow. $50,000. That just gives you an idea of how big Webtoon is these days with prizes on that scale, right? I mean, wow. When they can just give that away without blinking. And just to be clear, I think second place had like $30,000, and then there were a bunch more prizes and stuff like that. Yeah, Scale Hunters doesn't sound bad at all to me. That Scale Huntress does sound cool. Your Man-Thing costume you wore in your intro way back when was much better. I do still have that somewhere back here. By the way, here's like a weird little bit of trivia. So I look back there, you can see that I've got like my Infotron costume back here, right? I think I can break kayfabe about that since this isn't Comic Tropes. I gave Infotron those red eyes, right? When I came time to make Man-Thing also has like red eyes, and I couldn't decide what to do, so I actually popped those out, and the Man-Thing costume has the same eyes that what do you call it? That Infotron used to have. Hey, Mandela Butterfly, thanks for dropping in. Just wanted to drop by. Love the Nightmare and Sleepy episode. Thank you so much. That one was fun to make. I haven't had as much time this week to make new episodes because I'm going to New York Comic Con in just a couple days. So, am I going to have an episode of Comic Tropes up on Monday? Probably not, just to set expectations. At this point, the only way I feel I could get any sort of an episode fit in is if like some sort of an interview were to happen tomorrow night that I could like edit in time. Like, I just don't think I can fit an episode in for Monday. So instead, I think what I will do is spend that extra time, and there will be a Comic Tropes episode in 2 weeks. And hopefully it'll like have like a little more time spent on it. Yeah. You mean that's Infotron's deactivated body, right? Infotron's a robot. Yep, that's exactly it. Long live Clean Sweep. Yes, that was another costume I once wore. I was the G.I. Joe Clean Sweep for an episode. No, what did when you say did you see Todd's post today? I can only assume that we're talking about Todd McFarlane. So tell me, what did he say? I don't know. But thank you. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, thank you. I had fun making that episode about Nightmare and Sleepy. Totally wild. Golden Age characters that I think could have worked very well if there was a consistent team on it developing it, but they just sort of swapped that out regularly. So I think that it went in some strange directions that it didn't need to go, and that's what derailed it. Oh, Spawn movie news tomorrow. Okay. Do a Comic Tropes locked in the New York Comic Con hallway. Yes. My favorite was when you were covered in bags to talk about Mark Bagley. I didn't even remember that, but that sounds like something I do. You like the Usagi video? Thank you. That one seemed to get some really nice feedback. What happened to Sleepy? Hey, who knows? It's up to you. I saw that episode yesterday. Those characters had so much potential. I think so. What other news do we have? Here's one that's kind of serious. All right. So sort of steel yourselves for some not pleasant news. Okay. This is ugly. But I wanted to mention it because it involves a comic store being robbed, and unfortunately that does happen now and then. I can't cover them all, but this one was especially egregious, and I wanted to mention it just in case anybody ever hears or sees anything. Maybe we can get the guys that did this one. No, Mandela, I did not get my Paste Pot Pete costume ready in time, so I'll just be there as myself, but I'll have the Paste Pot Pete costume someday on this channel. Okay. So in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, a comic book shop was robbed. Okay. But it's pretty extreme. While I ink, I'll just sort of like read here so that like I can just sort of bang out two things at once. The store is called Comic Collection for anyone that might live near there or has heard about it. The store owner was there, and two guys came in and they asked him to get down a rare comic that was high up on the wall. So the store owner got a ladder, climbed up it, and once he was up on the ladder, the two guys knocked it over. When he fell to the ground, they began beating him up, like really hitting him. Then they zip tied him, and they put a knife to his throat and told him that they would kill him if he, like, shouted or fought back. They stole his laptop, they stole his keys, they stole all the cash in the register, and of course, they stole a ton of comics, rare Pokemon cards, various merchandise like figures and statues and stuff. They had duffel bags, and they just loaded the duffel bags up. They took this stuff, and this was a well planned out crime. They came in masks, and they while they were on the run in the cars, they threw out some of the stuff that they were wearing. They threw away the duffel bags themselves, and they were wearing latex gloves so that they wouldn't leave any fingerprints or anything. So these guys commit a very serious crime in a very calculated way. Horrifying. Nice to see you, Andy. Sorry it's under such brutal circumstances. Damn, poor dude. Absolutely. Oh, that's nice. Evan C says, only 30 minutes from me, I'll patronize them. I'm sure that they would appreciate that. Yeah, it's horrible. It's horrible. It is, isn't it? Yeah, this story was terrible. Yep. Obviously, we all have sympathy. I figured, hey, I'll mention it because, look, if they stole a bunch of this rare stuff, they're obviously looking to unload it, and they're probably not dumb enough with the plans that they had to unload it online, right? It would be pretty obvious, I think, if they tried to put it on things like eBay. So there's a better chance that they might wait a while and try to fleece it to, say, like maybe other comic stores further out, maybe a pawn shop, things like that. It depends on how patient these guys are, because the cops obviously did not catch them. But also, here's the thing. When a crime is committed, people talk, right? These two guys, do you think it's like possible that they would, like, tell a family member or tell a best friend at least a detail of it? Maybe not exactly what they did, but something. So if we spread the word and the awareness, especially in the comics community, maybe there's a small chance somebody will hear something and go like, hey, I don't know if it's related, but, like, my cousin was bragging about coming across, like, all these rare comics recently. I don't know. Maybe I'm being overly optimistic by thinking mentioning the news could lead to something, but it can't hurt. Well, I guess it can hurt us mentally to, like, and spiritually to hear that there are people out there that would do something like this. Yeah. I wouldn't doubt if it ends up on eBay. Police do not invest much into tracking these things down. Maybe the police wouldn't, but if, like, the store owner probably would, and he could say, hey, cops, guess what I just saw? All my stuff is on eBay, Do you think they're watching now? I don't think that's super likely. And if for some reason they are, just know that you're like the scum of the earth, like you're horrible. Like there's no excuse. There's just no excuse. So, yeah. It's particularly hard merchandise to get rid of. It is, collectibles that have value or we're stealing can be noticeable. They stole all these Pokemon cards. What are they going to, like, take, like, the next 5 years to sell them one at a time? Probably not. More likely they might, like, wait 3-5 months, something like that, and try to sell them in small lots. But it would still, like, show up. You'd just be like, wait a minute. Like, that's an especially big lot of valuable things all at once. It would show up. Sadly, there are a lot of shady private collectors. There might be. There are missing Doctor Who episodes stolen and sold on the black market. Is that true, or is that just a, sort of a urban myth that we want to believe? I don't know. Anyway. So, it's at least worth mentioning, right? Hey, maybe some of you live in, like, that Pennsylvania area, and you can just keep your ears out in case you ever hear somebody say, like, oh, yeah, I just came across Hulk number 182 and you know, Detective Comics number 27 and so on and so on. And that would be weird if you heard that. Weird that they took a laptop. I thought thieves don't take that often because they're easy to track. Well, that is a good point, Gene. That might be the main thing that they could go after instead of the comics would be the laptop. You know, like if they somehow log in, you know, maybe we hear that they get caught by something dumb like that. But alternately, maybe they sell or give that to someone and then like it goes through a couple hands before somebody turns it on, you know, because they're willing to sell it real cheap. Maybe. I don't know. Or maybe I'd be a more clever criminal than some of these guys. And like the way I'm thinking it out is more than maybe they'll mess up, you know, maybe. That would be nice. We don't want them to get away with this, do we? Anyway. So I don't love talking about negative news, like, you know, like a movie rumor or somebody acting weird in comics. That's one thing. I don't love talking about this dark stuff, but I also don't like the idea of people getting away with something like this. So I thought that was worth mentioning. Let me move on to another piece of news at this point, I think, unless there were any other comments there. If they took graded comics or cards, let's hope they're too dumb to crack them open. Who knows? Who knows? What they did to the clerk ups the heat on them tremendously. Exactly. They did beat somebody up and put a knife to somebody's throat. That is definitely, you know, elevating the crime. Okay, here's an interesting one. Okay, we're going to go away from dark. We're going to go to more interesting. We're going to talk about a comic about crime instead of an actual crime. How many of you out there watched the movie The Batman? I thought that it was pretty darn good. Actor Paul Dano obviously played the Riddler, and he did something interesting when he was hired that led to him now writing a comic that's coming out this month about the Riddler. Hey, we talked about like some creators today, like Patton Oswalt and Bruce Campbell getting into comics. Well, here's another one of them Hollywood actors taking our jobs. Paul Dano. Paul Dano played the Riddler. A lot of times when an actor gets a role, they want to be able to really understand that character in a way that might go beyond what's simply represented on the page. And one of the things they will often do for that would be to create a character journal. Okay. Paul Dano had a slightly different approach. He decided he would come up with his character's backstory, try to understand his character, flesh things out that weren't necessarily in the plot, but like would be relevant to or help make sense of his character's actions. And instead of a journal, he would write those notes as a comic book script. Well, the director and producer were like, well, let's show it to DC. And DC was like, this is very good. Let's do this as a comic. So the Riddler is getting a 6-issue origin, specifically the version that was in the Batman movie. Edward Nashton. He's an accountant that apparently goes through a lot of trauma, and that's what shapes him into the criminal he becomes. So, Paul Dano did an interview this past week with Empire Magazine, if you want to look it up. It's a short interview, but you can look that up, and he talks about that process and you know, like creating it and what he wants to do with it. And I thought that was pretty different and fun and interesting. And that I will probably read that comic. I am curious to see what he came up with for his character. Oh, let me block someone. There's no block user. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Daniel. That's nice of you to say. The trolls are loose. Got it. Spam. Yep. Got it, people. Thank you. Get out of here, bot. No one wants adult sexy time. No, you're all here to see me. Nothing sexy about this at all. Whoops. All right. So anyway, yeah. Art, by the way, let's mention this because we're talking about the writer, but art by Stevan Subic. I'm guessing at that name, folks. I hope I got it right. But he's going to talk about his traumatic past. I think that sounds interesting. It's a different approach. Do they have an actor for the Joker yet? I think Matt Smith would be a perfect Joker. Well, technically, yeah, they do. The Joker was in the Batman movie, played by, what's the actor's name? He also recently played Druig in the Eternals movies. He was in, he's in tons of great stuff. He's in The Killing of a Deer. He's in The Green Knight. I forget the actor's name, British actor, but they do have an actor that was already cast as Joker. So, yeah. Let's see. Do you think Batman movie got people to Batman comics just watching it? That happens with any comic movie? Probably. Because here's the thing. DC's out of control with how many Batman titles are out there right now. I think that they were capitalizing on some of that interest. Yeah, I think that they probably were. Barry Keoghan, thank you. He's Irish? Okay. Barry Keoghan. My sister says the Irish guy. Yeah. Yep. He's a good actor, by the way, folks. I like him in everything he's been in. If you've ever seen, what is it? The Killing of a Sacred Deer? That's a really weird drama, but boy, is he interesting in that one. He's really interesting in that one. Yeah. Anyway, he was hired to play the Joker, and he's in at least like a quick little scene, right? Or did they cut that and they released it online? Am I? Yeah, thank you for backing me up on that one, Evan C. Killing of a Sacred Deer. He's haunting in it. Star of the movie is Colin Farrell. It's a cool movie. It's cool. It's by this Greek director who's done some really cool dramas like The Lobster. He's good. He's real good. I heard the Batman title outsells anything else. Usually. That's why it's used as a what do you call it? Like a mark or like a high water mark for like judging sales. I'm trying to I thought I had some reference here for something. Hold on. Okay. I'm trying to understand how Deadpool's costume sort of works because I've never really drawn the back of Deadpool before. He was great in Prisoners. Oh, I haven't seen that, Samuel. Okay, he was great in Prisoners. Good to know. I thought he was good as Druig. So yeah. Barry Keoghan. Keep your eye out. He's gonna make waves. He's gonna be huge. Because he's still a pretty young guy right now. But I think he's got a big career ahead of him, if I had to guess. He was in the Maze Runner movies. I don't think I saw those. I might have seen the first one with my nephew. I think. Let's see. The scene in the movie is just with Joker and Riddler. Yeah, and I'm trying to remember now whether that actually was in the movie or if that was released online and they cut it from the movie. I really can't remember now. Oh, well. I've got more news. Even though we're at 2 hours, I still have 2 more pieces of news, okay? I still have 2 more pieces of news. First of all, don't know if anybody knows about this site, but there's a site called Whip Media, and they track the ratings, or at least the views, I should say, for streaming shows. Kind of like Nielsen tracks the ratings for TV and technically for streaming as well. So Whip Media, though, keeps track of streaming worldwide, what shows are being watched, and they break it out into little things each week of who's watched what. And they had the ratings, they're always a week behind, but actually it's 2 weeks behind, but for September 19th through 25th, they released the most watched streaming shows. Okay. They don't release the hard numbers, but they just release the top 10 shows that are watched, and I thought that might be interesting to you guys. Guess what was number one? Tell you what, just guess first before I tell you. Let's see some guesses. What was the most watched streaming show between September 19th and September 25th? Go. Go ahead and give me your guesses. I know there's a delay, so I'm waiting a minute. Okay, Rosstown guesses She-Hulk. Let's see. Shin Matthias guesses She-Hulk. Evan C guesses which I haven't watched. Dragon's Thrones shows. That's not going to be on there, even though it's on HBO Max. It's also on HBO, so it's not counted as an exclusively streaming show, so it's not there. A zombie show, did I just see? House of the Dragon. Yeah, House of the Dragon will not be in the list, folks. She-Hulk, Rings of Power, She-Hulk, Game of Thrones, Dahmer, good thinking, Cobra, that Sandman fella. These are some good guesses. Andor, very good guess. Very good guess. Some of you are right. Here we go. I'll do the top 5, okay? The top 5. She-Hulk. She-Hulk was the number 1 across all streaming platforms. She-Hulk was the most watched show. So, I find that very interesting because you see some stuff if you're just on, say, Twitter or Facebook. You might see people going like, oh, it's bad. I wouldn't watch this or that. People are absolutely watching it. The most show, because listen to what comes after She-Hulk. Number 2, Andor. That was the premiere, the first 3 episodes. Andor was number 2. And I think Andor is fantastic, by the way. I think Andor is great Star Wars. Number 3, Cobra Kai. If you know, you know. Like, it's a very fun show. It's very popular. It's definitely one of Netflix's biggest shows, actually, now. Which is funny because originally it was not a Netflix original. It was a YouTube original. Dahmer. Dahmer has definitely been in the news a lot, like that show. That is number 4. Number 5, Rings of Power. For the amount of money Amazon spent to get number 5, ugh. By the way, I think Rings of Power is actually really good and has gotten better after the first 2 episodes. I like it. I like it a lot. Yeah, I totally agree with you, Andy. Digging Andor so far. It feels real and lived in. It's people dealing with, like, living in an oppressive society, and you understand why a rebellion would be formed. That's an interesting story worth telling. Yes, some love for Cobra Kai. I love Cobra Kai too. Out of all of these, the only one I'm not watching out of those top 5, I'm not watching Dahmer. Although I would watch this. Like, I would watch My Friend Dahmer, which is based on the comic by Durf Back Durf. I love Durf Back Durf. He writes some interesting comics. That's a nonfiction account because Durf went to high school with Jeffrey Dahmer. He knew him. He was friendly with him. He never would have guessed that, like, that guy would become a serial killer. And I think that there's a difference there because Durf tells his side of the story of knowing this guy before he was a killer, and he did some research into understanding who Jeffrey Dahmer was. I think that that's an interesting way to approach something like this as compared to just focusing on the murders and sort of making those victims a little faceless and maybe potentially, I haven't seen it yet, so maybe they don't do this, but potentially glorifying, potentially glorifying a serial killer. Could be great. No, not Lex Luthor. Evan Peters, the guy that played Quicksilver, in comic book terms. Let's see, and I could be wrong. Maybe it's a great show. It just seems to me that I appreciate the angle that Durf was able to take. And I do recommend that comic, by the way. I watched 3 episodes of Dahmer. Just like the Blonde movie, I really cannot recommend it. Okay. High concept, Dumb and Dahmer. It's a good way to go. Where was I going with that? Like, I guess all I was saying was, on top of that, if you've never read Durf Back Durf comics, definitely sort of an indie vibe and everything, but boy, does he do great, well-researched comics. He's got a book also that's semi-fictionalized called Trashed about his time working as a garbage man. And he tells how much garbage is generated by the average person? Where does it all go? Like, what are we doing as a society? It's a super fascinating book. It's great. And he did Kent State. That's where he's from. The Kent State, the police killed a bunch of student protesters. It's horrible. It's horrific. But he tells these things and makes you feel like the people behind it. He does his research. And his book, My Friend Dahmer, is really good. It was made into a movie. I haven't seen it yet. My wife watched it this past week. She didn't know that I wanted to see it, so she watched it. She said she thought it was well done. I need to see it still. Anyway. People already glorify serial killers online. Dahmer is good, but very disturbing. Yeah. I'd be lying if I said that I didn't occasionally listen to true crime podcasts, but the true crime podcasts I enjoy are ones that have closure, or that talk about maybe a miscarriage of justice so that you can try to understand something about the criminal justice system. I don't want to just hear about a murder like that. That depresses me quite a bit. But I do find true crime interesting. I think a lot of us have that penchant for listening to that stuff, right? It's something my sister and I can sometimes talk about too. You're like, hey, what podcasts have you discovered? Have you discovered any lately, Gene? I haven't listened to a true crime podcast in quite a while now that I think of it. But I'd be curious how many movies and TV shows about Dahmer is there? A lot, probably. I can't watch anything related to Dahmer. I watched his trial growing up, and I don't find anything about his life fascinating. Yeah, I agree with you here, Tom Teacher. The Serial podcast was amazing. That was a really interesting angle, especially that first season. Okay, let's see. Here's one. Explore With Us is a scary YouTube channel, but I recommend it. I'll keep that in mind. I like true crime sometimes. I like a lot of different things, Sometimes that's what I like. That's what I like. The best things in life are free, but you can give them to the birds and the bees. I want money. That's what I want. Oops, I might have sung that a little too perfectly. I don't know. Hello, Rick from Tennessee. Hello from the United States of America. I only found about his existence from the Mindhunter TV show. That was I've heard that's good. My Friend Dahmer is with Ross Lynch. Yeah. How many people unconsciously equate podcast with true crime podcast thanks to Serial? Maybe. Did you see the update on Adnan? No, what's the update? Is he free? Because I got the impression that he is not guilty from everything I've studied. And he's lucky to have, who's that friend of his that's been campaigning tirelessly for years for his, for justice for Adnan? I don't know. He's free? Hold on 2 seconds, folks. I got to look this up. This reminds me of the West Memphis 3 when they finally went free. That was a big deal for me. Freed earlier this month. Oh my God. Wow. He just got released. If you don't know what we're talking about, listen to the podcast Serial Season 1. This guy Adnan was a teenager accused of murdering a girl in Baltimore, and it never really added up. That he would have the motive and the proper like opportunity and stuff like that. So that sounds like the right thing. Now it's always like scary to think that that means that the true killer is still out there, but we can't like, anyway. Recent news, not comic news. Exactly. Yeah. Wow. Well, hey, let's let me try to wrap up this comic book show, right? Obviously, I'm talking to you about like everything except comics. I don't know how I quite went down that path, but thanks for bearing with me anyway. Last piece of news I want to talk about tonight, okay, is Berserker. Berserker, that's the Keanu Reeves comic. That's how most of us know it. It is co-written by Keanu and Matt Kindt. Well, I think none of us are surprised to know that it was also always being developed as a movie over at Netflix, our good friends at Netflix. And there's been an update there. The co-writer of that movie, Keanu, is writing that movie, and he's co-writing that with a writer named, I don't know this name very well, so I have to read it, Mattson Tomlin. Mattson Tomlin is co-writing the live-action version, and he tweeted out that he finished the script for Berserker. So I guess that will probably go into production fairly soon. And there will be a live-action movie starring Keanu Reeves as Unite, the character he created for the comic. Here's something I found interesting. So Mattson Tomlin, okay, so he collaborated with Keanu Reeves to write Berserker. He's also collaborating with Matt Reeves to write The Batman 2. Presumably, Mattson Tomlin just likes writing with people named Reeves. I think that's his fetish. Yeah, Mattson Tomlin, people are saying co-wrote the book. Yes, Bill Crabtree is a fantastic colorist. Super familiar with him from when he did Invincible for the whole run, right? Wait, maybe he didn't do the whole run, but he started on it. Bill's great. And Andy's pointing out that he colors Berserker. I'm behind on Berserker, but was enjoying it. I think Berserker will read better once it's fully complete. I'm not. Last week I read an issue and I was like a little lost. I'm like, sometimes certain comics don't read as well month to month as they should. One of the ones that I reviewed this week was House of Slaughter. I think that will read well once it's collected as a trade, but some stories just really need to be told all at once. And when you dole them out as chapters month to month, sometimes it sort of falls apart a little. The pacing doesn't always work perfectly. And I think that's the case for Berserker, because I don't think Berserker is bad at all, but I sort of get a little lost with where the story is. Because it's a pretty long, epic, big story, and I get a little confused because I didn't take my old man pills. I don't know. I'm just making that up. Anyway, wow, we learned about some interesting stuff tonight. Adnan Syed has been released. That is huge news. That sounds like a small measure of justice in this world, in my opinion. Obviously, not everybody's going to agree. That's probably a little controversial, but wow. And we've got New York Comic Con coming up in just a few days. I'm only going Saturday. Is anybody here in this live chat room? Is anybody going to New York Comic Con? I'd love to hear. Regarding some stories and trades versus chapters, 100% agreed, but that isn't always financially viable. Oh, I understand why it's done. I understand 100% why it's done. But what I'd say is when it needs to come out monthly, the writers should definitely consider that people haven't read it for a month and might need a little bit of reminder, even if it's just like that opening sort of flat page with, credits or something. Sometimes that's what we need. Let's see. All right. Solstice art will be at New York Comic Con. Well, keep your eye out for me. Please say hello if you see me. Going to CXC. Wishing the best to everyone there. Yeah, I know that you won't, Beijing, but you'll be there in spirit. I will be going to Anime New York NYC in November. Okay, yep. Difficult to say Adnan wasn't guilty, but reasonable doubt for sure. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. If my black Superman suits fit, I'll be in it. There you go. There you go. All right. So I'm looking for black Superman. I'll keep that in mind. Last year, a comic about Gain by Powell was an exceptional comic. Oh, talking about crime comics and stuff like that. I am not able to go to NYCC. Sorry to hear that, Diana. It's a pretty amazing place. Yeah, I think that anime convention is also at the Javits Center, to answer your question. Oh, yeah. All right. Looking for black Superman. Black Superman. Very cool. Very cool. I hope that some of you say hello if you see me, because you know what I look like. I don't always know what you guys look like. But it means a lot to me when people are brave enough to introduce themselves and say hello. It's lovely to meet and see the faces that I'm speaking to every week. So that means a lot to me when people do that. I appreciate all that a lot. Tell you what, before I finish everything here, I am going to make sure that I at least draw Deadpool's butt, because I was once told that one thing I do well is draw people with a well-shaped gluteus maximus. So let's see if I can continue that streak there. And yeah, there we go. No, it's okay. The show's about to end. Thanks for jumping in. I want to go to New York Comic Con. Finances are going to Cookie Monster. Thank you for being here, Diana. That's a lot. Are you a Mariners fan, Chris? I'm happy for my local folks here in the Pacific Northwest that they made it into the playoffs. I can't really claim to be a Mariners fan. I grew up in the Boston area, so yeah. It's better for a guilty person to go free than an innocent to go to jail, because when an innocent goes to jail, a murderer always goes free anyway. I think that's true. I think that's true. I don't know what this is. GMX. I don't know what that is. Ending the stream with Deadpool's butt is a good call. Yeah, so I didn't finish this one, but, bring it up a little closer there. Let's see. Tell you what. I'll just quickly show this big, and then I'll come right back. What? I'm on this. What? The art's over there, but it's supposed to be over. Huh? Oh, there we go. There we go. Always need artists to draw nice butts. Any more water news? It's the source of life. Very good. Nice. All right. Thanks. Thank you all. I had a fun stream with this one. We talked about some big news, doodled a little bit. Oh, tell you what. I keep you guys updated on certain sketches and stuff. So I'm close to having this Vampirella cover done. I need to finish a little of Vampirella here, and I decided to do away with the background that looked too much like the Crisis on Infinite Earths comic. It's an homage, but I didn't want it to be quite so direct, okay? So I've got the gorilla holding Vampirella, and then I'm going to use Photoshop to include a few things. I'm going to have just two people in the background. I'm going to have Draculina and Pantha, and then this is going to be me, and just to be clear, I'm going to scale that down, and I will be up here mentioning the various tropes that are found on this cover. Everything from an homage to death of a main character to gorillas. Hey, sexy ladies too. So that's what I'm putting together, and that's going to go into Photoshop and become one cover. So I'm getting close to wrapping that one up. Just thought I'd show you because you guys saw me draw some of this originally. But yeah, so like I'm just going to have Draculina and Pantha and then me. This stuff is going away that's in the background, and that's like the main cover. But I think that'll be fun, right? Would you buy that? You better buy that. We'll see what happens. All right. I think I'm going to call it a night. I got to eat some food. You guys have been amazing as always. Thank you so much. What do I always say? There's something I always say. What is that thing? That's right. Keep reading comics. Tell you what am I doing with just like the one finger? No, you guys get the devil salute. And thanks for the comment there. Yes, covered it in Zipatone. Everything should be covered in Zipatone. Apes a poppin', apes a zippin'. There you go. Looks great. Good night. Yes. I'll buy that for $1. It might be more than that, but thank you. The crown is heavy. Yep. All right. Eat more burgers? I think I will. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Keep reading comics. Bye.